This is the real picture of Afghanistan. Imagine how scared these people were to feel that they had a better chance at survival by grabbing onto an airplane thousands of feet above the ground than to live under a Taliban regime. They knew they wouldn't make it, but it was still a better option than life under the Taliban. To understand why and how the regime is tyrannical and unjust, we need to turn the clock back 20 years. After a 5-year power struggle, the Taliban came to power in 1996. By 1998, the Taliban had control over 90% of Afghanistan. They formed a government based on the pillars of oppression, misogyny, and sexism, and manipulated masses with blatantly wrong teachings of Islam. Claiming to respect women's rights, they oppressed women. Education, a fundamental human right, was banned for Afghan women, and they were only allowed to be educated with the Quran till the age of 8. The Taliban stripped women of their human rights, and the punishment to be educated was public beheading. They considered women to be property, as if they're showpieces to be kept inside a cupboard. Employment of women was illegal, and to even get out of their houses, they needed a man to accompany them. The regime was so unbelievably patriarchal that women weren't even allowed to be treated by male doctors, which led to the death of hundreds of women. How will there be female doctors if women are not allowed education? 1970, beautiful Afghanistan. Our hearts ache when we listen to tunes of Ustad Awamir describing his beautiful motherland. Doesn't yours? The obvious question here is, of course, who turned Afghanistan into a wasteland from what once used to be paradise, and how? To understand that, we need to turn the clock back 40 years. Afghanistan's misery began in 1979 when they were invaded by the USSR. This opened doors for the US, who then wanted to defeat the USSR at all costs. Afghanistan was turned into a battlefield by two superpowers, and Afghans have had to suffer its consequences to this day. The US weaponized Afghan religious sentiments to use them in their fight against the Soviet Union. They produced textbooks in an effort to indoctrinate Afghan children into waging war against disbelievers. In their hunger for world domination, they shrewdly changed the meaning of sacred words of the Quran, such as jihad, to what would best suit them in these textbooks. Along with them, NATO, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and the UK too played a pivotal role in funding and providing arms to the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen started getting bigger and stronger through the help of these nations. As a result, civil war, unrest, and conflict began between the Islamist group. A number of people who fought alongside the rest of the Mujahideen later became some of the prominent leaders of the current-day Taliban. This is a picture from around the 90s in the United States, part of the massive 15-year propaganda that was just pulled off.
I'll be meeting personally with Taliban leaders in the not-too-distant future, and we'll be very much hoping that they will be doing what they say they're going to be doing. They will be killing terrorists. We're going to bring our people back home. We've killed ISIS fighters by the thousands, and likewise in Afghanistan, but now it's time for somebody else to do that work, and that'll be the Taliban. And I really believe the Taliban wants to do something to show that we're not all wasting time.
Following Trump's negotiation with the Taliban in 2020, the latter threatened to attack the US and NATO troops if all military personnel were not withdrawn by the set deadline. Biden too followed his predecessor's footsteps, but more shrewdly when he came to power in 2021.
We did not go to Afghanistan to nation build, and it's the right and the responsibility of the Afghan people alone to decide their future and how they want to run their country.
His justification of abandoning the Afghans in the war the US themselves created was to better utilize US troops in other wars. As the Afghan government rapidly lost control owing to the withdrawal of US troops, former Afghan President Ashraf Ghani fled the country in fear of his own life. This gave the Taliban a golden opportunity to seize control of the capital, Kabul, on August 15, 2021. The Taliban had to face zero hurdles in their conquest of Kabul. Upon taking control, they repeated the same false promises as the last time. They spoke of providing women's rights, letting journalists criticize the regime and of not taking revenge on those who worked against them. However, the world has already seen the outcome of these promises from 1997 to 1998. Currently, they are marking the houses of employed women to keep track of them and abducting girls over the age of 15 to forcibly marry them off to Taliban soldiers. Afghan universities that once echoed with music are now a hub of broken instruments. With the talks of a music ban, life for Afghan musicians who had long been targeted and persecuted has become even harder. Amidst the chaos of a crumbling nation, the women of Afghanistan have risen up like every time. When the Taliban was previously in power, female-led NGOs like the Afghan Women's Network, Afghan Women's Council, and Revolutionary Association of the Women of Afghanistan worked day and night to make lives better for Afghan women. They provided services like healthcare, education, income generation, trauma counseling, and rights awareness. These groups are once again at the forefront demanding a nation free from Taliban's oppression. Unlike the media propaganda of making the US the savior of Afghanistan, this isn't a fight between the US and the Taliban. It's a fight against the Taliban and democracy. It's a fight so that the 14 million crystal bayats in Afghanistan are treated like people, not property. Bombs and pistols don't make a revolution. The sword of revolution is sharpened on the whetting stone of ideas.